Hello everyone, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And this is our June 2024 Block of the Month. And as we explained in the beginning of the year, our first 4 blocks had to do with rectangles and squares. This is the second of the second group of 4, and these all have to do with half square triangles. And this beautiful block, which comes to us from the Ladies Art Company, which is a very old group of people that were putting out patterns starting in the 1850s.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Anyway, they called this block Mosaic number 1. Last month we did Mosaic number 10.
And we have one more from that
group. Yes. So if you remember last month, this looks a lot different. This was last month. And so these are both made with just half square triangles, but it's your arrangement that changes the look completely. Mm-hmm. So Shelley, tell us about the fabric we need this month.
Okay, so again, we're using our focus fabric for the year, which is Yalka, designed by June Smith for M&S Textiles. Now, if you are not going to turn these in for the drawing each month, then you can use your own focus fabric. And this is what it looks like right here. Okay. So yeah, and this focus fabric, as you can see, has lots of colors, but it doesn't have any black in it. So keep that in mind. Okay, so what do we specifically need? Okay. Oh yeah, you have other fabrics to talk about. Well, yes, we also have a light coordinating, a dark coordinating, and a white.
Okay.
So what we're going to need is 1 4-inch square of the focus fabric, 6 4-inch squares of white, 4 4-inch squares of the light coordinating, and 5 4-inch squares of the dark coordinating.
Okay, so the easy way to think about, so the first thing we have to do is, after you cut these out, is you're going to pair up the squares to make your half square triangles. And the easy way to think about it is your outer corner is a light coordinating and a white. And so you need to pair up 2 of your squares of white with 2 of the lights. And then the center is your other 2 squares of light, and you pair 1 with the focus fabric and 1 with the dark fabric. And then the rest of them are the whites and the darks, and you pair those up, 1 of each. Make sure you put them right sides together. Now, of each pair, before you put them together, of each pair, you need to draw 1 or 2 lines on the back, depending on how you make your half square triangles. So we have a separate video in our thing that's just called, I can't remember the name, something to do with half square triangles, but it's just teaching you half square triangles. I think it's called Half Squared. Okay, so look at that video. It goes over a lot about making half square triangles, and we don't want to do that every month. Right. So we made this separate video. But anyway, so you're going to take the lighter of the 2 fabrics, just so you can see what you're doing if you're using drawing a line on the back method. I draw 1 line, Shelley draws 2. Right. So you can see I draw 1 in the center. She draws her seam line.
Right. This is my sewing line, so
yeah. So so you're going to draw that on all of the whites and 2 of the lights. So just so you know what you need. Okay, so the whites, obviously you pair those up with the other 2 of the whites. You're going to pair up with 2 of the lights, not the ones you have the lines on. The ones you have the lines on get paired up for the center with the focus and the dark. So what we want you to do is go and make your half square triangles. That's all you have to do at this. You can cut them in half along the center of the diagonal. But we'll talk about trimming when we come back.
Okay.
So we've made all of our half square triangles, and hopefully you've cut them on the diagonal. And now we need to talk first about pressing and then about trimming. So last month we had you press all of them open just to make it easy, even though the pressing it open is kind of a pain in the neck. But This month you can do that too. If what we're going to talk about on this pressing is confusing, just press them open. But if you do what we're going to say, you can see when you can lock the seams, you get really accurate placement of your triangles. So that's why we like to do it where we can tell you how to press them. Oh, and Charlie's block is still up. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing, your ones that are the white, basically you're going to press everything to the darker fabric except for 4 of the white and dark triangle combos and your focus and the light. Those ones you're going to press, the focus and the light you're going to press to the light, and then half of the white and the dark, you press to the white.
So all these are pressed, and the corners all pressed to the dark.
Yeah, and they won't even touch another seam that you would have to worry about the pressing on. So that's easy.
And then these ones, opposite of each other.
Yeah. So
One's to the white,
so that
one's to the dark.
That inner circle of darker fabric is pressed. Basically, you're pressing them half one way and half the other.
Right.
And so then when you're working on the center part, you have them opposite, and these are pressed to the focus. These two are pressed to the dark, so then these seams can lock as they intersect. And then out here, like Shelley was saying, you press these, one to the white and one to the dark, and you'll see as you lay them on there where it really matters where they intersect along here, which way the seams go. And if you start to sew together and they don't seem like they're locking, then you have them in the wrong order and switch them.
Right.
Okay. And worst case, you can always get up and go, oh, I pressed this one the wrong way, and repress it. It's easy to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So now talking about the trimming. So after you have them all pressed, then you need to make them 3.5 inches square. Now, the key thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a ruler with a line on the 45 degree. That line needs to go right on that seam line. And then you're going to trim the edges on one side. And then you're going to turn it around and trim it to 3.5 inches square. And so once you make one good cut on one side, very small cut, looking at your sizing, making sure you've got 3.5 inches. Don't cut a chunk off and then go, oops. Yeah. So then, and if you want to make it easy, you can always put a piece of tape right in the 3.5 so you can see it easy. But trim those down to 3.5 inches square. And then we're going to come back and we'll talk about how to arrange the block.
Right.
And we'll get this done. All right, so you should have 16 half square triangles.
That's true.
If you don't, make another one. Okay. So now, the easiest way to put this in the right order is lay your corner blocks out and lay your 4 center blocks, which you'll have a dark pointing opposite and a focus pointing opposite, and all of the lights point together. That's the hard part.
Yes.
Now, you should have a stack of white and dark that half are pressed to the white and half are pressed to the dark. And you're going to alternate as you put them on there. And all of these, the dark faces in, so the white always faces out. And it may be tricky to get the placement exactly right. But, I don't know if that's right. But I picked one from my white stack, and I'm going to set it up here. And then I'm going to pick one from my dark stack and set it up here. It may not be right. I think it isn't. I think I need to turn them, because they should be making a row like that. Okay, but I picked up one from each stack. And now I'm going to go around. So this was pressed to the white, so I need one pressed to the dark. And I'm going to make a row going this way. Now I need one pressed to the light. Finish that row. Okay, so now I've got kind of a corner. One pressed to the dark.
Except I think that one's turned.
Is it? What do you know?
This might be the only tricky part left.
Yeah, as long as it makes a box at the end. Okay, now I have one pressed to the light. Okay, can I get this right? One pressed to the dark. Make this row. And the last one pressed to the light, and I make that row. So, there's the layout.
Yes.
So, yeah, as Shelley said, put them on alternating from each stack, and then worry about
The orientation.
to make sure you have it right.
Yeah.
Just because these ones, the pressing doesn't matter. They don't intersect with a pressed block. These ones intersect with each other, and so they matter. And these ones intersect with each other, so they matter. So that's how we did it.
Yeah.
So now,
So some rows.
yeah. So any other words about that?
I don't think so. Oh, we're going to talk about how to press the rows?
We are.
Okay.
Okay, so now we want you to sew, like last month, you're going to sew the rows across. So the whole row, I would recommend you sew the whole row and then press it. And maybe wait to press all of them at the end, because you want, and when I was making this block here, I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. And of course, I pressed half of them wrong. So it is easier, it is more efficient to wait to the end, because you're going to press. It doesn't matter the which one you pick. You're going to press all of them, one row this way, and then the next row you're going to press to this direction and back and forth.
Right.
And that's the last of the easy pressing. So,
maybe, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, because definitely on that, for me, on the last part, I pressed them open.
Yes.
But we'll get to that. So we'll come back when we have our 4 rows sewn together. And remember, you do need to use an accurate 1/4 inch seam. These are not oversized blocks.
Right.
And at the end, after you press it, make sure your length of your row is 12 and a half.
Should be pretty exactly 12 and a half.
It could be a tiny bit longer, but if it's a lot longer, then you're not going to get good. These have to come down a 1/4 inch. So if it's too much, you'll lose your
seams
point.
Are too narrow or something.
Yeah. So watch that length. All right. All right. So now we have our rows together, and I do want to comment that as I was sewing these together, most of the time, okay, number one, I want to talk about how I actually do. We didn't talk about this last month, but I thought, as I'm sewing these together, and I have them on my little, board that I can carry around, or as I said to Shelley, I could probably frisbee across the room. They stick so good.
I know.
I sew 2 together, the next 2, the next 2, the next 2 in a chain. And then I sew this one on my chain, and then I start snipping off the chain and putting them back in order on the board. That's just my method, okay? So I have all those done, and now this one's on the machine because it was the last of the chain, and I sew these on together, and none of those in this block did I have nesting triangles. They just went together.
Yes.
And then when I'm all done, I take a few off, and now I can sew this center seam. And that's where you start seeing whether or not you've laid them out correctly. And if you go to put these 2 together and they don't nest, they're backwards. Well, this one down here or this one, it's kind of, well, this is the same block. And you maybe you get lucky. And if it wasn't pressed right, you can just fix it there. But if it isn't pressed right, as you go to sew these together, you can switch. Well, you sew it here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's right.
I would reassess, lay them out, and say, "Oh, does this look right?" In case you accidentally turned one or something,
Right.
that's what happened.
Yeah. But the nesting part where the seams nest and matter is down this center.
Yeah. On this particular block.
In this block.
Yeah.
And now that we have these all sewn in strips, now we're going to go and sew these together. And my method of this, and Shelley might do it different, because you could go sew these 2 together, then sew this one on, sew this one. But I sew 2 together, 2 together.
That's what I do.
And then I sew the final one.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, after I sew the first 2 together, and then I start the second one, and because I just hate you use leaders and enders on your thing, but I try to chain as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I start sewing this one, and then I take this one off and I go press it. Because I just don't want to keep having to put a leader or an ender on. And so I press this open. So when we get here, these ones should nest. There'll be a fair amount of nesting. Almost every seam in here should nest. And get you that really crisp point.
Yes.
So so we're going to sew these together, and my recommendation, I don't know, Shelley, do you do it that way, or do you do it
essentially the same way? Yes.
Okay, so you're going to sew the top two together, the bottom two together, and then sew that center seam.
Right.
Now, hopefully you have checked to see if your strips are 12.5 inches, and they should be. And they shouldn't be less, but they can be a tiny bit more, just not a lot.
You might have to check your seams if they seem too much off. And
Yeah.
do what you need to do to fix that.
Right. All right, so now we're going to sew these together and come back with our finished block. All right, time for the big reveal. Oh, I guess we aren't redecorating a house or something.
No.
Okay, so I love my block. Turned out good.
Yes.
And it actually is the right size. Here's my 12.5 inch square ruler.
I checked mine, and mine's pretty perfect. Yeah.
You'd think after all these years we could sew a 1/4 inch seam.
I know, and I must admit, when we first started doing these, I did some adjusting because we made those ones ahead of time, and that I came up with my perfect setting. So
Okay, just in time for us to change it. No. Okay, so these blocks, if you're making them for the Guild, are due in September because our summer meetings we don't do block of the month, so we have the block of the month extravaganza in September.
Yes, we do.
But because we kind of let you slide a little in the summer, I will say, of our 4 half square triangle blocks, next month's block is the most challenging.
Only because there's more squares.
No, because they're different sizes.
Well, they are different sizes, but I think there's more of them because there are. There's littler ones and
big ones. Yeah.
So but it's still half square triangles.
It's still it's just half square triangles, but we're mixing up the sizes. And we won't tell you the name of that block, and you'll never find it because
probably not.
Yeah. And trust me, in the fall when we mix it up even more, there's one of those that has even more squares. But anyway, don't worry. We're getting there gradually.
Yeah, and actually none of these are hard. It's just a little bit more time consuming.
Yeah. But I will say, because we were able to lock, do the alternating pressing, and we're able to lock in those seams, I have really nice points, which. In a lot of my quilts, I don't.
I know, and that to me is always the challenge, to get those points. And yeah.
I mean, and when we're doing, and it's kind of funny because in some ways, doing this traditional method is easier to explain than when we were doing improv, which I have to show more demos. Haven't had to do any cutting demos this year.
I know.
So anyway, all right. So we'll see you here back next month.